Welcome to Mindset Mastery with your host, George Wrighster. If you haven't tuned in before, you're in for a treat today. I have a woman that's coming on the show that is going to give us a vast amount of information about the real estate business and what she's doing and how she's getting it done. And at the same time, providing opportunities for others. Before we get started with our guests, let's cover a few house rules. First, I want to make sure that you go and follow us on all of our social media sites, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, podcast, and make sure you give us a 5-star rating. Your rating helps, and we really appreciate it. I appreciate it. Second of all, this is a year of giving. I decided this year I was going to give as much as I could to the community and to my listeners. By giving, I mean, I want to share as much information and content that will be a resource and that will be helpful for you to take advantage of and use to your benefit in the areas that you need it, whether it's health and beauty, whether it's today, real estate, or if some self-help that you need, business. It's a big thing right now. Everyone's that's stuck at home, and so everybody's creating their own businesses, whether they're online, and they need advice. You need advice. I need advice sometimes. So I call on professionals that have the expertise in those areas, and we're going to steamroll forward, and we're going to provide that for you. Next, I want to make sure that you know my favorite foundation for the year. St. Jude Research Hospital in Memphis, Tennessee. Please. St. Jude provides so many resources for families with children that have cancer. Those families pay for nothing while they're in the hospital. They also have funding that helps take care of the bills and that these families have when they're away from their homes with their children. What better foundation to support? What better hospital to support? So I'm going to ask you, please be a provider to St. Jude. Also, you can utilize your time. It doesn't always require money. You can utilize your time, whether you're sending cards, letters, different gifts of love to the children so that they can have something to lift them up and their families. So make sure you support St. Jude. Now, after we come back from this brief break, we're going to have Lisa Phillips in the house talking real estate. Be right back with you. Okay, welcome to Mindset Mastery with George Wrighster. I have a special guest on today. I couldn't wait to get this lady on the air because we're going to talk about some financial important things: houses, rentals, purchasing properties. And this lady knows it all. Lisa Phillips, welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Lisa, now listen, I'm going to let you fill our audience in on a little bit of background about yourself and how you got into this industry and housing and purchasing property and teaching and inspiring others to do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us how you
Okay.
did.
Okay. I do have my boilerplate response, but I'm going to give you guys something a little different. I'll start with the motivation of why.
Okay.
So I grew up in a working class neighborhood in Las Vegas on the West Coast. And I will say that working class culture is very distinct. It's middle class. It is, everyone's working some job. You lose a job, you get another one, like immediately. It's a place where my mom worked graveyard for some parts of my life. My dad woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning every day of my life, right? And so it's something where the work culture is not told. They never once told me to work hard. It is something that is shown and demonstrated and modeled. So it's a culture that I highly respect. And I'm so glad that even though the money wasn't what I wanted with my mind wanted horseback riding lessons. But I went to public school, so that's
Right.
okay.
Yes.
My mind wanted private schools and traveling, even at 13 and 14. And we had the budget for you get one set of clothes for the whole year. You don't get multiple
Yes.
shopping, right? And
Absolutely.
we went to Kmart at that.
Right.
So even though my mind was much bigger than my economic circumstances
Hmm.
and always had been, the ethic and the culture and community was something I to this day I respect that I was born into. I think the advantage of anyone isn't someone who's born rich; it's when you're
Yes.
born working class and you
Right.
make it to that level. I mean,
Yes.
that really shows like the determination of like it doesn't matter. Your ethic will outlast anything, and so
Hmm.
that was my background. And so when I went into corporate America, after I'm like, I need to make money. I'm sorry, mom, dad, I don't want to be a plumber. My dad's like, you could be a technician. I'm like, that's cool. You think but I want to work
Right.
physical labor. Um, you go and get a degree in electrical engineering. Then I jumped into a different field because it was a little too stiff for my taste. I'm just a talk sociable person,
Yes.
and I started in being a consultant for like some of the big four firms like IBM and whatnot, and Deloitte and Accenture. And what I learned was that, I was never going to fit in.
Mm.
And I think a lot of you guys can understand that. I was
Yes.
always going to make less money.
Right.
I was never part of the crew that promoted itself.
Correct.
I wasn't going to be in that crew.
Right.
I would have to change much of who I was as a person to be in that crew. And I had made a decision maybe 3 or 4 years out of college that I can't do this. I
Hmm.
thank you for the money. I will use that and funnel it into, and I discovered real estate investing
Okay.
because the reality was I would be too unhappy trying to fit into the corporate America mold and being an employee and being under people who I thought, your talent isn't more, your connections are.
Yes.
And where am I going to get those connections? Right.
Correct.
And
Yes.
so to me, instead of working on those other aspects, trying to thrive in that environment, that which I think was not set up for me to excel in, but just to be a worker bee,
Hmm.
I was just determined to do my own thing because I wanted to be happy, not spend 30 years complaining about my work situation.
Yes.
So I remember I had gotten laid off for like the second time. And so I had gotten a job, got laid off, got another job pretty fast, and got laid off again. And this was around 2009. And that was like right at the bottom of the fall. And there are like people losing hundreds of thousands, almost a million jobs a month during that year. Do you remember the
Hmm.
crisis?
Oh yeah.
And I could not get another job. But what I had done right before I got laid off was I bought this condo for $35,000 in Ohio. And it was actually a really nice condo. I was like, houses cost this much? And I just didn't know that coming from Las Vegas. You're from the West Coast,
Yes.
that doesn't exist, right?
Correct.
And so I had bought that right before I got laid off, and the mortgage was like $350 a month.
Hmm.
And I'm like, my savings can take care of this. I don't have to work for a year. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like
Exactly.
with all of my utilities and the bills, because it was a condo, so you don't have as many utilities. I think it was like $650 a month.
Hmm.
And I got a roommate.
Oh wow.
So who paid
Yes.
$650?
You
So
in the game.
was having fun that year.
Yes.
So I know that sounds crazy, but like, I was young, I didn't have kids. And I mean, so I like for 6 months, I just fixed the place up. I had a
Hmm.
roommate. I was just doing whatever I want during the day. And I said, this is the life. And I realized that these low cost properties, like not only can you live in them, but they're a great hedge.
Hmm.
And so within that year, I got another job in DC and I went out there and I said, I want to do this again. And I just started looking. And I found that there was a demographic and type. Like there were these classes that were generally either low income, but some were working class neighborhoods where, the crime was a little less. Everybody was working. There was
Hmm.
stability and money stability. Now they weren't making tons of money, but it's where the mechanics and the dental hygienists, right?
Yes.
And,
Hmm.
people who are teachers or insurance adjusters live. They don't necessarily have the wages to live in the nicest part of town, but they generally find the solid parts of town if they feel comfortable and safe living, right?
Hmm. Yes.
And I found one in like the Maryland area and Baltimore. I found one in the Richmond. And so I bought two more homes, one for $13,000 and one for $25,000. And I still kept the one that was 35. And I was like, oh, okay. So when I went online to talk about it, they were like, oh my gosh, don't go in these neighborhoods.
Yes.
Those neighborhoods.
Now you were
I'm
doing
like,
all this.
you mean what? Like the kind I grew up in, where
Right.
everybody was
Exactly.
Hispanic and no one
Yes.
spoke English except like me and like another
Right.
family.
Yes.
Like, you mean I grew up in these neighborhoods? What are you talking about?
And you were doing all of this without a mentor. You just started on your own, and you just found the zeal and the and the opportunity. You saw the opportunity was there, and you started.
I I sometimes you look back at the evolution and realize that you had a lot of support on high
Yes.
guiding you because this was sort of what you needed to do, you
Yes.
know? So I will say I
Yes.
can look back and see that things were lining up because this is something
Mm-hmm.
that needed to be done and needed to be
Mm-hmm.
taught. Okay. So, but at the time, I did have now my ex-husband at the time was helping, and YouTube had just figured out that all these people can like show you how to change bulbs, and Home Depot showed you
Yes.
how to lay
Yes.
tile,
Yes.
and
Mm-hmm.
this showed you how to paint. So YouTube was amazing because we'd be
Wow.
in the house was like, oh, how do we do this? And we'd find a video of a plumber showing you how to do it, and I would just use that. And so we made it. The first
Mm.
house, I'm not gonna lie, the one in the condo I had bought, I was there. I'd wake up, be like, let's do this today.
You're right.
And I slowly did it, but it didn't need as much work. The house in
Mm.
Baltimore, though, was 1905. We took like, I'll just be really honest, we worked on it every Saturday for 11 months.
Oh wow.
So I
Wow.
wasn't in a rush. It was $13,000. I wasn't in a rush,
Oh,
right?
you definitely.
And it was like the first big job I was doing. So I just slowly took my time, and each
Mm-hmm.
day there was like, we got to figure this out. We have to pull the carpet up. We have to paint, or this is going on here, or we have to take this plaster down. We have to do this. And so that would be the goal for the weekend, and we
Mm-hmm.
would do it. And sometimes it'd be 2 or 3 weekends because we were new and didn't know. Now, it took 11 months and it looked great afterwards. But I will say, after the 11 months, I learned a lot about doing work myself. Which is good because ever since then, I can take that knowledge and gauge if a contractor is saying it's going to be way more work than I know it to be, because I pretty
Great.
much did everything. But I will also say I do not do that work anymore. Now I hire people. The first one was a gimme, all right? That was a learning
Yes.
experience, which
Yes.
didn't subsequently help. But
Mm-hmm.
as an investor, as any business owner, you need to get to the point where you're not doing everything yourself anymore. I think in any
Gotcha.
business, you have to grow past that.
Yes. Now, as you were going through the process of um, going in and working on those properties, and then you got to the point where you wanted to dress it up, interior design, make sure you
Mm,
had all the appropriate things that so the appeal of the house would sell to someone. How did you manage and manipulate that? Because I know some people can go in and fix up things, but
mm-hmm,
now when it comes to the layout, the design, and all of that,
mm,
who
mm,
helped you with that part of it? Was that
mm-hmm,
something that you had a little knack for, or you had to
mm-hmm,
really dig on YouTube or
mm,
whatever resources you needed to
mm-hmm.
facilitate that part of it?
That's why I always respect like a male female team
Mm-hmm.
when you see them. And even my investors who I then teach, if you're a male investor, I would
Mm-hmm.
say if you don't have the eye, bring your sister, bring your mother,
Mm-hmm.
bring someone with an eye. I just say female. I know this is the world of it's just easier to find a female, okay?
Yeah. Oh,
If
absolutely,
you're a male,
absolutely.
get a female to go with you and have her look too, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And take it seriously, because at the end of the day, who makes the buying decision in this polarized world,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes.
I'll be very honest, I've been doing long enough. My male tenants do not care. My female clients are like, can you make this white, and can you do
Yes.
this, and we want this, and this doesn't look right? And so
Right.
know your audience. And as a female, like, I already brought that, so I did the interior decorating. But I do tell my male clients,
Mm-hmm.
bring someone if you don't have it. Now, some of my clients do, okay.
Right.
They're better than everyone else, and that is fine. But you have to know yourself. If you're not good at it, that can be a disadvantage at you showing the place well. Bring
Okay.
someone who is excited. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if you tell any woman right now, will you go with me to look at this property and tell me what colors you would do or what you would suggest? Like, it's
Yes.
not a hard sell. You don't even have to pay them. Okay.
Correct. Yes, that's true. That is so true. Now, your book, your best-selling book, Investing in Real Estate Properties for Beginners. How did that come about? And what if I were to purchase that book, or you were going to instruct me on, how to make this whole thing happen? What's the best part about that book?
Hmm. Good. Two good questions. The first part, how did it come about? I had always planned on selling like a $5 ebook, right? It's funny. I was like, yeah, let me start this platform, tell people about it, and just sell a $5 ebook. It'd be a nice source of income, right? But also
Hmm.
getting the word out. Um, I did not realize the effect it would have on people. I really didn't. I have met people since I've launched the book in 2018
Hmm.
from all over the world. Um, People are signing up to work with me through the book. And it's interesting because when you write, you're just writing what you know, and you
Hmm.
don't realize how big of an impact it is until afterwards. And people are like, I've read, this one guy said he read 52 books on real
Wow.
estate for the year.
Hmm.
And he said mine and one other was the best.
Whoa.
And I actually worked with him as a client. He signed up for one of my programs to work together.
Hmm.
And he bought two duplexes within a week of working with each other. It was funny. We just had like a few conversations, got things, and it was boom. But
Yes.
but it was just, so I'm glad I wrote the book, and I almost didn't do it. So in my mind, when I started in 2013, I was like, I'll write the book, but I never did it. And then one day, it was funny, I was listening to these affirmations. You guys really should listen to your affirmations. And I was listening to it every night. And on day 21, I woke up and I was like, I need to write this book. I had not thought about it before.
Hmm.
I had not thought it any, but that is what came through source. All right. That came through. And it's so funny. Like I'm writing book 2 and 3 right now. So I'm
Okay.
editing right now the second book, which is Investing Out of State.
Okay.
And I have another book that's coming out, Buy This, Not That House.
Right. Okay.
So those are finishing up right now and they're
Hmm.
editing. But so I always thought about it, but I just got inspired after doing that personal inner work. And I must say that the book needed to be written
Hmm.
because a lot of books are out there on real estate investing and they're good books. It's just they're not really not clear who they're talking to. I make it very
Mm.
clear. I'm
Great
talking to
point.
black professionals who are going to
Hmm.
low income houses.
Hmm.
Period. When you read so much on rental properties and they all have 18 different strategies,
Hmm.
that's okay if they're really clear about who they're targeting. We're targeting houses in A-class neighborhoods. We're targeting houses in the Midwest. But they don't get to that level of nuance. So it's confusing for people to see
Yes.
seemingly contradictory information. Well,
Hmm.
it's not wrong if you knew, well, in the Northeast, we do this, but in the South, that's the difference in what we're doing.
Hmm.
And like I find that people, and especially people, black professionals who are first generation college, first generation white collar, you know, there is generational wealth gap, and that is very much in the institution of this country, and it's going to stay that way as long as you you go through their methods. You're going to get paid less, you're going to get redlined, you're going to pay more for this, you're going to not be promoted as fast. Like there's all these things that go into why there's the wealth gap and why it's going to stay if you stay within their construct, right? And
Yes.
so for me to come up with like, hey, we can rep in these neighborhoods, we can go right back, and this is what you're looking at, and all you need is $10,000 to $20,000 to start, and then we build like one house a year. We buy
Hmm.
$30,000 to $50,000 houses. People have cars more expensive than that, so
That's
it's
true.
something that resonates with us at our level. But I
Hmm.
also found over the years, you start acquiring these assets, and one of them might double or triple in value. And for the first time, I have $50,000 cash in my pocket, or I have $100,000 in equity. One girl has like $300,000 because she bought in Atlanta before it blew up, right? And
Right.
like we're in our 30s and 20s, like
Hmm.
talking like this because
Yes.
we started with a modest price and we just slowly built, and we didn't just necessarily listen to everything else that was like, oh, 0 to 180 units in 3 months, and like
Hmm.
that's how's that going to work? Like that
That's
doesn't
true.
work for me.
Right.
I don't have the
Exactly.
money or the friends, and my friends, oh, just raise money from your friends. My friends don't have money. Okay. Like, they just got out of college too. They got a student loan. They didn't get their college paid for.
Exactly.
They didn't get their college paid for. They don't have generational wealth. They don't have a old aunt with $200 million, $100,000 in the bank, and they can give you 20 pretty easily. Like that's not our story, right?
Yes.
And I don't have any shame about that. Like I don't have shame about America's historical treatment of me. But you just have
Correct.
to acknowledge I don't have the funds to do what you're trying to tell me I should do. So
Hmm.
I have to do something different that works for my funds and my budget level. And those neighborhoods that you're so fearful of is my neighborhood. I'm
Yes.
fine.
See, I, this is why I couldn't wait to get you on the show. Your honesty and the simplicity in which you speak and help people understand that there's a game out here, but you just got to learn how to play it.
Mhm.
You know, and everyone can participate, but how do we participate? And I think that in our community, that's part of the struggle. We don't know how to participate and where to get the information to participate, because there's so many different real estate gurus, like you say. They put out all these programs, and I won't call them out, just just for, I don't want to do that, but but I will say that um, they reach a higher end market where they
Mhm.
offer a program that's going to cost, someone like, let's say if I'm an investor, you go in and you're paying 30, $40,000 to just enter the program, and then you think you're
Woo.
getting one thing and you don't get that, and
No,
then
you think you're going to get a coaching and you can barely get anyone on the phone call, right?
girl, stop
Because
talking, stop
I'm
playing
a,
with me. You know,
can
you
I
know.
say it? Can I say it?
Uh-huh.
Fortune builders,
Yeah.
Van
Yeah.
Merrill, they're like, oh, we're going to coach you. And then the
Hey,
people I've read, they're like, I could barely get people on the call and they didn't
have you
coach
heard?
me anything. They're like, they
eh,
told me to bring the numbers and I thought they were going to teach me how to read the numbers.
Exactly. Have you heard a response?
I've not yet. Is that a
Okay,
new
okay.
one?
Well, you look. No, well, they've been around for a while, but they also put out some information and get people involved in some things that they don't add up. The rubber doesn't meet the road when it all is, once you pay and you can't get someone on the phone,
Mm-hmm.
or you don't receive the training that you thought you were going to receive, or the training that you thought you were going to receive
Mm,
isn't efficient enough to
right,
get you even
right.
started to where you want to go.
I get very mad. That's why I'm calling them out.
That's what. So now you started your
I mean, and
program.
especially doing it in our community. There are some
Yes,
people who do not care that we are already starting at a disadvantage and they'll still take
yes,
the money in a predatory manner, I think, and run
yes,
with it. Okay.
definitely.
So I will call you out because you need to cut that out and we need to see who you are. Because I mean, I have a lot of integrity about that.
Mhm.
And
Well,
I won't just take anyone's money, honestly. Like, there's people who want to work with me because they're excited. You're excited. I'm
mhm,
excited. But, like, I'm
yes,
like, baby, we ain't got enough. Like, let's do
right,
this, do
yes,
this, start at this level. And then when you get up more capital, we can do this level. And I mean, you just had to have been there to be able to do that. And I've been on
mhm,
that side where they wanted to take and not give in return. And it's going to catch up with you eventually. I
yes,
wish it would catch up faster, but
right, exactly. So that being said, when someone comes to you and they don't have enough capital, they don't have enough
yeah.
resources, do you work with teams? Do you put teams together of
Hmm.
investors that could co-op and buy together, different properties?
I don't do that because at these price ranges,
Mhm.
it you don't want to. I don't want them to cut their profits
Okay.
because it's split between a couple of people.
Mhm.
I'd rather they get the full profits to build that portfolio of cash flow faster. So I will work with them, talk about how much do you save. Like we go down to how much are you saving a month? Okay, 10 months. Okay, 18 months. Okay, 2 years for you to hit this, 12K goal, right? And I'm like, don't worry about it. That's where you are now. It's not where we're going to end up, right? But I'd rather you start with this. And even if you get one house every 2 years, okay, well, in 10, 20, 10 years, you'll have X amount, and that's enough for you to stop working. It's okay.
Yeah.
And I guess like one of the things is I'm just so comfortable with like where I come from and that I don't have like a ton of money in my family. Like I'm comfortable saying that. Like, and
Yes.
I think once you become like, because I do that, like I try to make other people be comfortable and
Mhm.
accept where they are financially and not find so much pain or shame or
Mhm.
embarrassment around it because it doesn't fit
Yes.
up what it should. But I
Yes.
just never wired to try to pretend to be more than I am. I
Mhm.
like being accepting who I am for other people to accept where they are because then you get to a healing place when it comes to money. You're just more
Yes.
healed because you can accept where you are, look at it without the shame, and just start going from there versus beating yourself up for not being where everyone else is. And I think that's a big part of of my platform while it's still here because I've had people and 2 years later or 3 years later I'm working with them. But they
Mhm.
had 2,000 when they talked to me. but then they're like, I have 25 now. That's happened
Yes.
so many times. I can't even keep up. Right. And I love the fact that they stayed in and stayed in and they didn't lose focus. They stayed on those goals for the 3 years. And then we started investing. And they generally have way more than we set the target goal for.
Wow. See, I like that because you talk about honesty, integrity, you talk about humility, you talk
Hmm.
about shame,
Hmm.
embarrassment. And most people
Hmm.
in our community, especially, carry that stigma and that shame,
Hmm.
and they
Hmm.
don't know how to be honest and speak
Hmm.
to someone like you so that they can get a plan, start moving in the right direction, and then a year or two later, and sometimes, like you said, happens even sooner, and sometimes they get
That's
more than they have. So,
always.
oh,
They always have more than like we talked about 2 years ago. And
right.
this is a thing where like you remember people from 2 years ago. It's not like,
Mhm. Yeah,
they
of
just
course.
blow your like it's not like so long that you don't remember. And it's always twice as much as we talked about. And it's
Yes.
always like some random like, oh, I got a settlement. Oh, this happened for my great. It's like always some random money like
Yes.
that comes to it always is. And I'm always like,
Yes.
oh, won't he do it? But yeah, the shame and embarrassment, it's so interesting because I'm so comfortable talking about my truth.
Mhm.
And I don't care how much money I have. Like for me, I'm still Lisa. I'm still smart. If I don't have money, that's just because something happened and I didn't know, but it doesn't define who I am. That's just
Yes.
something happened and I didn't know. And my parents aren't rich, so I have to start over again. And
Yes.
I found a big part of doing this is like some with the people who don't have as much. I
Mhm.
do spend a good 5 to 10 minutes going like, it does not matter. I don't want you to compare yourself to other people. It doesn't matter in the least because they're not you. You don't know. I've had clients, you don't know if her husband left her house. You don't know if they have a Brooklyn brownstone that she's tapping into $100,000 of equity. Do
That's
you
true.
have one? I don't have a Brooklyn brownstone. Do you have a Brooklyn brownstone? Right. And so it's just, and I do these just to go like, you don't need to compare yourself. You don't know what they had in support that you did
Mhm.
not. Right. So let's not
Yeah.
compare ourselves to that. So if you can save 400 a month at this point or 500, okay, in 12 months that's 6,000. 12 months for that,
Yes.
that's 12,000. So let's do that. So how much can you save this month? Okay, good. How much more money can you bring to it? Okay, good. And we
Mhm.
just get rid of that. And I tell them those stories because I do meet people who have a Brooklyn brownstone, and I'm like, I wish I had a Brooklyn brownstone.
You better
You
believe
know,
it.
like I understand the envy, right?
Right. Exactly.
Like I
Exactly.
understand, like, oh, I wish I had that. So it's not like I'm
Yes.
blaming you, but it's also like, but I don't, and that's okay. I have other
Yeah.
things. I have
Yeah.
time. I have a goal. I'm going to get there.
Now, you mentioned something a little bit earlier, and it kind of hit home, so I have to ask about this. And I don't want you to give away too much of your new book that you're writing, Buying Property Out of State.
Mm,
Okay, now I had an experience. Since you're the guru, I gotta get my therapy today.
bring it.
Okay. So I went to Ohio looking for some investment properties, and I had done some homework with a realtor in Ohio, and I had done some things, my due diligence through the internet, searching. When I got to Ohio, I found out that the realtor that I was working with may not have been as savvy as I thought he or she was at that moment. And then some of the properties that I looked at, of course, pictures always a little bit deceiving depending on who takes the picture and
I
what's
do
going on.
know.
So
I
you
do.
rely on you rely on a relative to do his homework, go look at the property, tell you what he thinks about it. He should know the neighborhood, or she should know the neighborhood, the area, and then
Ooh.
you get there and you find out, okay, hey, what have I walked into? Give me some advice so I won't have the experience that I
Okay.
had the last time.
Okay. So you did do right by understanding that you were right in understanding that the pictures can be deceiving. Honestly, I've been doing this for about 10 years now.
Mhm,
Half of the time, the pictures are pretty accurate. The other half, they are not. You have to go in person. And so when my clients invest out of state, we get a list of 5 to 20, 10 properties that we vetted. That were like, these are good properties to go out there to make sure their trip is worth it. But like also because we know half of these won't make it. But you don't
right.
need more than half. You need one or two, depending on
Yes.
how much the budget is. So you're right in that aspect. Now, the second part that I heavily stress with my clients, you cannot ask the realtor investor questions. You cannot.
Mm,
You can't ask them about the neighborhood. first of all, they're not supposed to say anything because of steering and
Correct.
guiding you. But not only that, they're not thinking as an investor. They generally, about 90% of the time, are thinking of a first time home buyer. A first time home buyer is not gonna, like, I'm not living there, right? This
Yes.
is for a
Correct.
tenant who's part of that neighborhood. So it's
Yes.
not gonna look like what my place looks like is not what that place is gonna look like.
Right.
You know what
Yes.
I mean? I'm paying the rent for my place and they're paying
Yes.
half of what I pay for theirs.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
You know
Hmm.
what I mean? And
Yes.
so I have to heavily stress to them, you are telling your realtor, you're not asking them anything. You're saying,
Okay.
we're going to look at these 5 houses. You're not going to ask them, should you look at these 5 houses?
Mm.
So once you understand that they're looking at it from would they live there or is it nice to their standards, and they're not thinking about it, I'm just making sure it's good to me as an investor, and two, it's already going to have an audience in that neighborhood who fits that demographic. So we're going to scale down to that level, and they just don't necessarily have that ability to do that because most investors aren't going into the lower price ranges. So when they are dealing with investors, they're dealing with those who are more upper end, and so they're not going to go to a neighborhood that doesn't look as nice or posh. They're not. That's just not the game that they're in the majority of the time.
Yes.
So I would say relying on a realtor only if you've worked with them like 3 or 4 times and you know they have an eye and they have an eye for what you like and the kind of
Hmm.
investments you work. But in the beginning, you tell them, and you're not being mean about it because sometimes they want to go, what do you think about this? And oh, I have my clients take videos of the houses they're looking at, and then
Hmm.
we'll go over the videos, and they'll show me like I was worried about this and this. And one time, a guy was looking and he was like, "Oh my gosh!" And this there's no central air conditioning, so we're gonna have to get this. And his real estate agent was like, "Yes, you do." And she said it with her whole chest. And I remember when I saw it, I was like, no, you don't. In these neighborhoods, in these houses, you can just get a window unit for a few
Yes.
$100.
Hmm.
And that's how you do it. You don't need to spend $8,000 on new ductwork. Not for this
Yes.
neighborhood, not at this time. Now, if this neighborhood triples in value, okay, we'll invest that, $4,000 to $8,000 of ductwork and HVAC system into it. But for now, $600 of window units will do it.
Hmm.
But he was new, which is why you work with me. So I'm like, okay, on this case, that's not quite how you would do it for your own house. This is
Hmm.
this is different. But then the realtor is thinking like, oh my God, I wouldn't live here. And so that is why, that's where it comes from. But that's just an example of how they're just not thinking of the people you're servicing. They're thinking of themselves, and you're not going to live there.
Correct.
You're buying there, so you're automatically different. The people who
Yes.
rent there are going to be perfectly fine with those window units,
Hmm.
okay? Because that's why
Hmm.
they're paying 800 in rent and not 1,500 in rent, okay?
Yes. Now, let's say I'm buying now. Let's say everything went perfectly fine,
Mhm.
and I bought the houses in Ohio or Michigan or wherever I wanted to buy, and now I need a team of people to help me refurbish and go in and work on the house because I'm in California. So I'm not going
Mhm.
out there to work on this property every month,
Mm-mm,
every
nope.
week. What
Mm-mm.
suggestions do you have to someone like me to find the appropriate or the right team of people to help me out and
So
facilitate that?
your biggest team members at the very beginning will be your realtor. So
Hmm.
just finding a realtor who's okay in the lower price ranges. Not everyone is.
Hmm.
Commission's not that much on a $50,000 house.
Right.
So they'll do it. They're not
Yeah.
gonna be super happy to do it. They'd rather look at a $200,000 house, right?
Yes.
Three and a half
Yes.
percent on that pays the bills.
Right.
So finding that is one of the things that we have to undertake, and we have to be a little savvy about because they don't get that much money. So you have to
Hmm.
help them help you.
Okay. Okay.
And the other part is property management. So I do not let my clients purchase if there's not at least 3 property management companies, preferably 4 or more, in
Hmm.
that market. And here's why. I can find a lovely, beautiful house and it's $35,000 and needs no work. And it's in the middle of nowhere. Very cute, scenic, very cute. It's in the middle of nowhere. There's like no one to manage the property. Do you want to be an out of state landlord or do you want to be an out of state rental property owner? I'm a
Okay.
rental property owner. I do
Okay.
not do that work. I tell people all the time, I was in this landlord roundtable group on Facebook, and everyone's talking about putting notices on doors or what are you doing this? And I was like, why am I here? I don't do this. My property manager
Right.
does. bye. Like I gotta leave. Like I don't even don't do this.
Right,
And
exactly.
so because of that, like the property management is an extension of your team. And so you have to make sure in that city they have property managers so you don't have to become the de facto landlord. And not just that, at least three. I am in my Ohio property. I'm on my third property management company in 9 years. The time goes by really quickly. The first one wasn't that good. They all say they're good, but what I try to tell my new investors is that when you start getting from corporate to mom and pop or single people businesses, you get single people personalities. Everyone says they're good, right? And
Yes.
of course, I give them some questions to vet the people from my
Okay.
experience. What I've learned, depending on how they answer, tells if they're going to be good or not. Um, but they all say they're going to be good, but in some places they might not be good. And instead of you getting all worked up, you're like, I already took care of this. Let them know that you're finishing the contract or breaking the contract and paying whatever fee.
Mhm.
And you know, I literally have my new property manager pick up the keys from the old one. I did not have to fly out there. And
Wow.
they're the ones who are going to be hiring the contractors.
Mhm.
They're the ones that are going to be showing the places, and they're the one that's going to be managing everything. So you have to make sure you have more. And then I got rid of the second one in Ohio because, and this is all in a 9 year span, you know, so every 2 3 years, and they just were too expensive every time someone moved out. And I was like,
Mhm.
dude, like what? That's like it's my year's profit. No. So and
Yes.
then I'm on my third one. They're okay. They're a little pricey, but they are pretty efficient. So I'm with them. But like it goes to show if I would have been somewhere, I sold my Baltimore property because Baltimore is a very unique place. I have videos on what I think about the market.
Okay.
But it was so hard to find a good contractor. Now, I mean, property manager. Baltimore has some other issues too. Like finding good contractors is hard. Finding your things getting stolen is a common thing. I mean, contractors who are high on the job is common. Like I thought it was just us. Oh,
Yeah.
we all share that story. You know, like
Right.
it has its own issues. So property
Yes.
manager was already hard too. So I
Yes.
sold that property because I was like, it's so hard to find good any talent there that isn't like borderline, you know, just off.
Okay.
And you know, like I don't want you to have to sell in 5 years because you find out that they just don't have enough good people. So a big part's like how many property management companies do they have? Oh, two? Okay. So if you go through two in 2 years or 4 years and you don't like them, are you ready to do the work? Because if you're not, we look for another market.
Mm, that's good.
Does that
Good.
make sense? And then they'll
Yes.
handle it. But you have to like we were very strategic in the
Okay.
beginning, so it all works out in the end.
Okay. Great. So now I was going to ask you something, but I'll say that until the end. Okay.
Write it
So
down.
definitely. Okay. So now, when you have clients like me,
Mhm.
I want to team up with Lisa, and I want Lisa to coach me and mentor me. What should I do to make that happen?
Oh yeah, just reach. It depends on how cerebral you are. Some people like to read my book first,
Mhm.
which I like the book because it gives you things I'm talking about. It's not
Mhm.
going to go as detailed as talking to me on the phone, but it's going to
Okay.
give you an overview because we have a system. I don't care if
Okay.
you live in New York or DC. I've worked with people in Mexico and I've worked with people in Canada, and you wouldn't be surprised to know people in France and Germany and Japan would like to work with me as well too, right? Like you wouldn't
Wow.
be
Okay.
surprised. I mean, everybody wants a good deal.
Yes.
Everybody wants a
Yes.
$30,000 property.
Definitely.
They're not all rich in France.
Yes. You better believe it. And that was going to kind of lead to another question I was going
Mhm.
to have you was, do you have a favorite city that you've seen the return on the properties have been so good for you and your clients that you would advise people to actually possibly look into those cities? Or
I
do you
will.
want to disclose that
I
now?
do not disclose on my platform. I have found if
Okay.
I say a city
Okay. Oh, oh.
within six
Good.
months,
Yes.
every every property. So I just sort of keep my mouth shut on that.
Okay.
And we just found a location in Illinois, and I was like, "Don't go to my Facebook page
Right.
telling everybody about this
Yes.
place. You better be
Okay.
quiet." Shh.
Yeah,
Like
definitely.
we are such a giving people,
Mhm.
but I'm at
That's
we
so
gotta
true.
shh, shh, shh.
That is so true.
But I give other information, right? I'm pretty
Okay.
free with other information, but with that, I'm like, just keep it close to your vest until you make your own empire.
Okay.
because a lot of people can't see these properties or these markets the way we can. So,
Hmm.
that is your advantage. But I would say for the other people who would want to work with me, you can start with a book if that's what you're more comfortable with. Start with looking at my YouTube videos. And if you like my energy, you like what I'm saying, and you just trust that, from what I'm saying that I can deliver for you, then do a strategy session. You can go to my website and just click on strategy session, fill out some information. I want to know where you live. I ask you, are you open to travel? Because these prices might not be where you live, right? And if you're
Yes.
like, no, I'm like, oh, okay, well, then I know when I'm talking to you that, like, hey, you're gonna up your price because
Exactly.
you don't want to travel. Like, the deals are sometimes in your backyard, but other
Hmm.
times you have to drive 1, 2, 3 hours or take a flight, which is not a big deal. Like, I really try to tell people, like, it doesn't have to be that big of a deal. And um and so that's how we start. And then we do a 30-minute call after I get that information because I know what you're working with. And I'm already
Hmm.
having, okay, your budget's this. Okay, we have to look in these type of markets versus you don't have as much range. All in for 50,000 needs to be like a pretty much well done house. You don't have that like a budget for doing a big renovation. So then there's certain, that limits your selections versus if you have more money, you can take houses that need a little bit more work, a little bit more than cosmetic, but you have the money for it. So we can do a wider ranges of markets to get to that price range.
Okay. Then how do you, with the pandemic and everything that's going on right now in the country, how is the rental market? How do you see people navigating and negotiating through this? Because where I am, I'm being California. If you're buying property right now, everybody is bidding and paying outrageous prices that are far above what the value of the properties are, just to secure those properties, and it's crazy. So the deals are very limiting, and
Mm-hmm.
they're
Mm-hmm.
it's tough.
Mm-hmm.
It's tough
Mm-hmm.
for a wholesale. It's tough for a
Mm-hmm.
person that's buying the fix and flip. It's just a tough market. So you're paying far above what the actual value of their price is, with the hope that when everything shifts and levels out, you made a good deal.
Mm-hmm.
How you dealing with that? How you negotiating that with the clients that?
So when I work with my California clients, we already know we're out of that game. I
Okay.
remember
Okay.
driving around Pasadena looking up housing prices. I was like, 2 million for that little 1,400 square
Exactly.
foot house? Are you
Yes.
kidding? I gotta go. So I mean, that
Yes.
is a game for really big fish. Okay.
Yes.
Um, so my California clients already know that we have to leave
Hmm.
because it's just hard to cash flow there. Now, eventually, maybe, you're betting on appreciation, but even right now, I think Newsom is talking about buying up all foreclosures. So they're like the owners of all the properties. So even then, the idea that it's going to keep appreciating with things like that at the political level, I would say hold off on thinking that because, I mean, that's pretty serious to have someone even talking about that. So we're automatically looking outside. But as far as outside of California, it's the same. There's a lot of people storing up their places. So in some markets, it's highly competitive and people are still going for it. In some places, the inventory is a lot more because a lot of people have been hit hard. But we're still out there doing deals, and there's some markets where like the prices are going up because there's a lot of investors. That's why I keep the markets that we find that no one's talking about close to our vest.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense because I know a
It's
lot of
still going
investors.
on.
Okay, good, because I know a lot of investors here are struggling, and they are going outside to outside markets. And I was just wondering, were those markets experiencing the same thing that we're experiencing here? So,
That's a good question. It's hit or miss. And it's very interesting. It's very interesting because you would think that with everything going on, that all the prices would be at bottom prices, and they
yes,
would be. But a lot of investors are coming out of the woodwork. Some are
yes.
bigger investors, institutional.
Hmm.
So we're having to look and compete with that. Um, and then in other places, it's just the same,
Hmm.
but not a huge drop that you would think, right?
Okay, all
So,
right.
and we've been doing this all through the pandemic, and not the drops you would think.
Hmm. Okay, let me ask you this: what are you passionate about?
My community elevating to the highest levels.
Mhm.
My Black community elevating to the highest level at the base. That is literally my mission here on earth.
Wow, that's awesome, and I feel the same way,
Hmm.
and that's one of the reasons why I'm always interested in bringing on people of color on my show, because I want us people to know we have a voice, and I want
Mm-hmm.
us to believe in our voice that we have. So we want to expose that, or I want to expose that to as many people as I can. So
Mm-hmm.
I can definitely tap into that vision.
I like to say they have warriors who are willing to take whatever needs to take in order for that mission to be completed, and I am one of them. So, hello.
Wow. What what would you say is your biggest motivating factor? What's in your vision for you personally
Mm,
that's moving you to get up every day? And we talked about how good you felt today a little
I
earlier
did,
than
yeah.
yesterday. What's motivating you? What's your drive?
Um, can I get a moment to think about that?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
because there's many motivations.
Okay.
I do, so I grew up poor, but my mind and spirit has never been poor. Okay,
Mm.
so
That's a nugget right there. I'm writing that down definitely.
yeah, my
All
spirit
right.
was never poor. Like I understand I grew up that way and it taught me what I needed to teach so I can
Mm-hmm.
bridge a gap, but my mind was always on living a life of abundance and luxury and you know what I mean? So I it didn't matter my circumstances. That was the vision that was in my spirit. That's what my spirit apparently is used to, like the
Yes.
finer things in life.
Yes.
So I'm working towards that place where I can get up every morning and I don't have to work and it's my own time. And if if I want to go on a nice vacation and do luxury things, I can. So I've always, like I said, my been very rich, even if my circumstances on the outside was not. And so I wake up every morning to get to
I
the point
like
where I have
that.
multiple streams of income, multiple, right? And I'm working and I'm building and I'm writing, but like I'm doing all of that, multiple streams of income where I can do whatever I want with my time, which, honestly, like my spiritual practice is pretty big. So like doing my healings, my channeling, I can spend 2 to 3 hours a day on just my physical fitness, the physical health.
Yeah.
And I love having that time to focus just on self elevation
Mm-hmm.
and betterment, right? But like
Yes.
the work I put in is to get to that point where I have those luxuries. And if I do it in service to building other people up so that they can have those luxuries one day too, that is even better because there is like an innate need or not need, like to help those who want the help so that like we all can experience this happiness. Like this is a great earth, this is a great life. And if you don't have the tools, you can feel so overwhelmed. And like if I
Yes.
can help you get out of overwhelm to empowerment and to self-mastery,
Mm.
financially or spiritually, like
Yes.
that means I have more people at my level to be with when I have all the luxuries. I don't want to be by
Yes.
myself. So, right? I want us all to be
Exactly.
here living our
Exactly.
best lives. You know what I
Yes.
mean? So
Yes.
that is so just the love of luxury and like willing to work for it. That is what I want. My soul has always wanted that. And I say my soul because like I literally sometimes no one understands this need uniquely. Like not everyone can expand to that level of like, I want to live that abundant. I told someone was like, what do you want? I was like, oh, recently I'm manifesting to be able to fly on a private jet. Not everyone has that level of
That's
luxury.
right.
Like,
Yes.
right? But I
Yes.
do. So it's in me. It's innate. And so that is
Yes.
what I work for. So
Wow.
you can say what I don't know. I love it. So I just can't wait until it manifests.
Oh, and it's going to manifest. Your energy, you bring that energy. It has to come. It has no choice because you won't accept it any other way.
On mission.
Last question, legacy. What would you like for your legacy to be?
Ooh, 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 ooh. Oh my gosh, maybe before I really started to really do the spiritual work of finding out what my purpose, who I am, what I am here to do, it would have been, I want a million black investors to invest in a million black communities.
Wow.
That's on the real estate investing end of things. I
Wow.
want us to be so like in every black community. I want us to invest in every black community. And I want when people talk politics, we are at the table. and you
Mm,
cannot ignore us, and you need to listen to what we have to say. I
mm,
want us to hold that level of power, and I want us to do it collectively en masse, and I want us to individually, like each of us individually doing it makes the whole stronger. So my end is
yes.
like, no, you will hear our voices, and what we say goes. So that's my
Mm,
ultimate legacy as far as real estate investing. But then
yes.
on the spiritual tip, because there's multidimensional being, right?
Yes,
On the
yes.
spirituality tip, I also have a spiritual channel inside that,
Okay.
going into this, I want people to know that they are so powerful and they have the right to ask the universe and God and the world for whatever they want, and don't be shy about it. So don't be shy
Mm,
about saying you want a private jet. And if they don't understand, accept, like learn how to accept that people aren't at the level to understand that. And that's okay
yes.
that they can't. But
Mm,
it's also okay for you to understand that and not dim your light or dim
yes.
your dream. So I want you to be
Yes.
so spiritually empowered that you literally go for what you want unapologetically. That would be the other legacy for people to, and for people to also find out spiritually how strong and powerful they really are to create the world they want if they just shift in believing that. And that is one of the biggest things I want to empower people with spiritually. So both.
Listen, you answered that question. You got me over here. I mean,
You
I'm
ready?
got chills right now. I'm ready to go. I
You
am
ready?
ready to go. I
That
am
is
so
my
ready to
that was
go.
literally my goal. I call my investors my army because I can't do it by myself. But if enough of you
Yes.
guys take up the call, there will be a point they will have to listen and respect us, not in some fake politically correct way, but
Yes.
we own the land way.
Definitely. Well, listen, it's been a pleasure. Trust and believe. I will call you, and if you don't answer, I'm gonna call you and call you and call you till I get you on this. Till I get you on more calls than you ever wanted to be on. Should have never open the door for me to get in touch with you because you have so much inside of you, and we need that. We need that light. We need your presence. We need your vision, and I want you to tell the audience anything in closing, anything you like to share, how to reach you, you get in touch with you,
Mm-hmm.
books, anything that you have up and coming, so that we can stay connected. I want to build a tribe so big
Yes.
that as we begin to do this over and over again, that our resources will begin to pool them together. We'll begin to trust.
Mhm.
Because if we
Mm.
don't trust,
Trust again. Hmm.
yes, yes, we have to have that trust in our community that when we share and we open up, we share, we open up, and we're honest, we can go.
Okay. My name is Lisa Phillips. You can reach me at affordablerealestateinvestments.com, or you can buy my best-selling book, which I'm really happy it was best-selling. I didn't expect that, but it's Investing in Rental Properties for Beginners, and it goes A to Z over all of these things. And then, if you like, in the book or on the website, you can reach out for a strategy session where we'll see where you're at financially and just with your ability to invest and come up with some solutions on how to get there. And then, of course, work together if that's what you'd like to do. And as far as spirituality, I'm an angelic healer and channeler. So if you want to go to my YouTube channel, Lisa Soul Level Healing, it's all about you finding out how to live a life of abundance by finding out how powerful you really are and utilizing practical spiritual tools to realize your power to manifest whatever you like and remove any limiting beliefs that you are anything less and that you deserve anything less than you want because you do, and how to go about that in a practical manner, in a practical way. So that is what I'm doing. And I'd love to meet all of you guys, invite you into the fold. I do have a very, very strong emphasis of helping the Black community in any way, shape, or form because this is our time. And if all you need is one way out of a million, well, I found a few. So I am more than happy to share them because it can't just be the few of us, it needs to be as many of us as possible.
Yes,
And as long as we all keep to that goal of setting up space, nurturing each other, building room with empathy versus shame for getting us all there, we can start removing some of the dysfunction, get on code, and get on board.
yes,
Because we need to
yes,
get on
yes.
code and on board. Okay.
Exactly, definitely. Well, once again, you've been a blessing. It was my pleasure, and I will definitely reach out to you again. You have a great rest of your day. Anytime you need me, you call me. The door is always open for you. And I want you to know that.
Thank you so much.
All right. Well, we'll be talking again soon.